what do you think about an AI native organization versus what the companies are currently doing?
We are not replacing people here. We are just augmenting us so we can have these capabilities.
Is the AI still a product enhancement tool, or it is something more than that?
I think it's something more than that.
Hey, hi Vesku. Thank you so much for joining the podcast Debug with the Monk. And it's really a pleasure to have you on board.
Thank you, Himanshu, for inviting me. It's fun to be on board.
It's so nice to hear perspectives of so many stalwarts in the industry. How would you summarize your journey till now?
How would I summarize my journey? Well, it's been a ride. Let's say for that, if you think about when I got started in 90s, yes, that I'm that old and going through these different eras, and now we are at the era of AI. So it's been very quite a ride, and it's getting faster and faster all the time, and things are changing faster than ever. So yeah, I would say it's been fantastic.
Awesome. And specifically with the adoption of AI, right? I think before we talk about how you're helping organizations adopt to AI or what are the challenges we are facing, I think I am very curious to understand, because you have seen the industry for so long. What was your personal purview when the entire AI came in, rushing in our lives? How did you adapt it before you become the subject matter expert?
Well, I think it was just a matter of being in the frontier and start using that on my personal level. And but AI hasn't been anything new to me. I've been utilizing AI for a long time. Almost everybody have been utilizing it. But what was new, what was of course the natural language part. So we were able to communicate with AI, and it was able to understand us when we were talking to that. And I think that was the kind of big change. But the thing was that, okay, let's see what we can do with that. And you have to experiment. You have to try out new things. You have to have fun with that. And that's how you get motivated. And when you're motivated, you are learning more. Okay, this is how I could be utilizing it, learning. And when I have been learning, okay, how to utilize AI, then okay, how I can utilize this at my work as well. So that's the key thing. And having the kind of courage to start experimenting and trying out new things. And I was also lucky that some of the customers were very interested about seeing, okay, how we can utilize it. So it was kind of a cool learning experience with them as well.
Interesting. I think it's just a very valid point. Like, you mentioned courage to get started on the bandwagon. I think that is very true, not just for AI, but for any change that comes into the technology. And so how did you, in the organizations that you're meeting and implementing, how are you resisting or working towards helping organization resisting this change, right? Over the period of time, I think there is a resistance that gets built in against new tech stack.
Yeah, there's of course always that human aspect, and humans are by nature more or less resisting the change because, hey, everything is working now. And why is that? Is because the change scares people. What's going to happen to me? How it's going to change my job? I know what I'm doing right now. What do I need to change? But on the other hand, because AI is a bit different than, let's say, when you were trying to push Yammer or something else to the organization, which was didn't have that kind of ROI right away. So it didn't kind of feel, okay, this is going to be productive or it's going to boost productivity, but it was a different kind of tool. So with a lot of organizations were already interested. And the biggest difference perhaps was that the interest came from the top. And it didn't come through the IT, or we went or trying to sell the solution to IT. Yeah, this is good. But instead, it came with a very, very hard kind of a solid business case, business need there. And so the management saw the opportunity and understand, okay, this can save us money, this can save us time, and we can do much better. And then there's so many tasks that we have to do manually. So I think that was one of the things that, which makes AI more easier to change people. Or how to drive that change, because there's a motivation. Everybody's doing tedious job or work, and we have something that's repeating. Okay, it would be fantastic to everybody has a really smart AI assistant that could do these things. And that's more or less the Copilot or the Copilot promise when it came out. So organizations, of course, a lot of people are hesitant and then thinking, oh, can it do that? And during those first couple of years, yes, there was a lot to improve. But we've been improving, or AI has been improving a lot in these kind of previous, let's say, half a year or even a year. So things have been driving and moving forward quite fast. So when people are seeing what it can do, when they are hearing from their management, when they are hearing from their manager and co-workers and everybody that, hey, this is how we can get benefits from AI, and they are seeing the examples, that's when you are starting to kind of make it easier. Because I don't know if you are familiar with ADKAR model, and with ADKAR, that's a change management model, and that's kind of you're basically starting to create awareness and desire for people to change, so they have motivation, and that comes when you are telling them examples that are affecting their work, their life, so they can kind of understand what it means to them, and then start seeing, okay, this is what I could be doing with that. And this is where it could be helping us, and this is how it's helping my colleagues. So that's kind of it's basically a change management thing on that side. And of course, you need to enable some things, but it's the AI projects are mostly there's only 10-15% of technical stuff involved in most of the AI projects when we are talking about AI assistants like Copilot and so on.
Interesting, Vesku. I have a couple of follow-ups on that. One is, of course, I haven't heard about ADKAR model, so it will be really lovely to decode it a little further in terms of change management. I think its application seems very interesting as to how we can propagate any sort of tech.
Okay, ADKAR model, let me see if I remember all the acronyms right. But it was the awareness building. The first, people are aware of the change. I'm not a ADKAR certified or ProSci certified person, but I'm familiar with the model because it's very widely used. So you create awareness about this is going to change, this is coming. So people need to start kind of get knowledge about, or awareness about that. And then they need to start building desire to be part of that change. So they want to, so they hear about, what could be done with that, how it could be affecting them. And in that, they are getting, I'm starting to get a bit more, we want to be part of this. I want to start using that tool. So that's a kind of a very big obstacle in things, because old way is to jump directly to knowledge. And so you are training people how to do it. And so that's the thing. It's if you start training people without them having this awareness and desire part, they don't really know how it relates to them. What's in it for me? That's the key thing in all that change management that should be going through. And then, all right, so we had the awareness part. So basically you have the knowledge, but then you are getting, how should I change what I'm doing so I can really apply this to my work? So I have the ability to use the knowledge and this tool, this is what I'm doing. And the last one is actually the R is the most important part. It's reinforcement. Because we are not just doing it like once. Hey, we have a 3-month change management project and it's done. Nope. That's not going to work. It's a process. It's basically ongoing. And that's the key thing with the AI. Everything is changing very, very fast. And new things are coming. There's new things to learn, new things to apply into your work all the time. So you need that reinforcement. And this is kind of ongoing change management that you have to go through all the time, so people can be staying up to date and understand, how they can utilize it if you want to kind of take AI into your daily use and then really as a company to utilize it.
Interesting. So ADKAR, right? I think
ADKAR. Yep.
I'll definitely go and dive a little deeper because there are certain practical aspects as a founder, as a CEO in my current company. I think based on how we have bifurcated the verticals and we are trying to infuse AI where it really is making a lot of sense, like for example, pre-sales or marketing and then recruitment. So I think this is where I can completely relate to as to how to propagate, how to get it reinforced. But thank you so much for that find. My second question or second follow-up question was primarily, do you see AI at this moment as a productivity enhancement tool or from enterprises perspective? No, see, I'm not talking about the rocket science, or I'm not talking about quantum physics. I'm not talking about all that jazzy stuff. But what I'm talking about is the business, right? The business as usual. In that aspect, is the AI still a product enhancement tool, or it is something more than that?
I think it's something more than that, because if you just categorize AI to, okay, this is just boosting productivity, you are not doing it justice. It's very, very kind of a narrow view to see AI. Of course, it is doing that too. It will boost productivity because you don't have to spend too much time on certain things that you did earlier, or perhaps you can kind of have more time to, okay, instead of 5 sales presentations, I'm going to now do 10. Yes, that's possible, but you still have to have, hopefully you have more time for each of those presentations than you had before. So you're creating better quality out of that as well. Or you are making those 5 to 6 ones, but they are way, way better quality than before. So depending on what you've been doing. So yes, it will boost the productivity because it allows us to do more, or it allows us to kind of think more as well, and think about the processes, so we can kind of reinvent the way we are working as well. And of course, the larger the organization, the less single person can kind of reinvent the whole thing, but they can still think about okay, how I am doing the work, what's my scope, what I should be doing, what are the kind of tasks that I could just push to the AI, and then I could be using my kind of my abilities, like okay, I could be overseeing several agents or what they are doing, and instead of just doing the work by myself all the time. But you can also think about, okay, what else I could be doing, thinking the big picture, thinking about, okay, earlier I didn't have time to do these things properly. So that's one aspect of that. But also, you can use it to kind of discover something new. You can discover new ideas. You can discover new ways to do things. So you can kind of focus on something else that requires the human intelligence and human thinking, instead of just kind of doing those things that as a human that the AI could be doing.
Absolutely. I think strategizing and thoughts brainstorming, that is definitely one of the key aspects that I think not just the subject matter experts, but in fact everybody is doing it now. I see people on the trains, on the metro, talking to chat GPTs or Claude of the world, and they're discussing their daily life problems and trying to figure out what the solution is, right? So I think that brings me to my next query or question, which is basically, what do you think about an AI native organization versus what the companies are currently doing in terms of implementing it? Do you see a gap, or do you think they are at the right path, or what is the gap?
Well, I think there is a very few AI native organizations out there, like truly AI native organizations. And so there's definitely a gap. There's a lot of, or most of the organizations are still running in the old way of working. They are not AI native. They may utilize AI in many ways, but it's still kind of a more kind of just a pinpoint usage of AI. It's not thinking about, okay, how we are going to be utilized throughout our processes, or how we are reinventing the way we are doing this stuff with the AI. So that's kind of, I'd say there's a huge gap on that. Like a lot of organizations, and of course, naturally, they are not rebuilding their backend systems to be kind of supporting AI or in every phase. They are doing it partially. So they are, as the backend system starts supporting those, they of course bring in those capabilities, but it's going to take a long time before the whole system is going to be AI native. But it also applies how people are organized, how people are utilizing AI, how you are utilizing AI in your all-day work. So let's say if you are what we are building with Frontier Firm Live at Sulava Mia, That's of course something that we are there ahead of probably about most of the other companies, if not everyone, because we are building our engine, so to say, there that's fully driven by AI. So we can kind of take that sales example and go through, utilize AI in every phase there, even so that it can generate us the agents right out of the engine. So you don't even have to start developing those, at least in some cases. But it's going to be assisting us all the time. So we can enter all the information, we can get the presentations from there, and we can get the agents out there, and so on. So so when you are starting to embed the AI there to everything you are doing, that it's not just not meaning that, okay, I'm utilizing Copilot every time, but instead it's also thinking about, okay, how you work as a company, as an organization, and how you are bringing and weaving, embedding AI to everything, every phase there. So, but you still have to remember, okay, what's the human factor? So it's not an AI run company, but it's AI is operating those mundane stuff or helping you to kind of utilize these tools all the time. So it will kind of process goes forward, and you just need the human input when you really need that. So yeah, well, the human in the loop is of course another topic we could talk about. Okay, and it's an important one because we are not replacing people here. We are just augmenting us, so we can have these capabilities. AI can kind of give us some superpowers and so on.
We can, of course, talk about it because that is, of course, the byproduct of the AI discussion. But before we land there, so please correct me if I don't understand this 100%. But you're saying that to be a AI native organization, you have to start by thinking how AI is going to help me in doing this, right? Maybe just plug AI as the first thought. Is it the right approach?
Yeah, of course, that's a part. Like when you are starting that, of course, you're thinking about it. Okay, how AI can help me with this? How should I be doing this with AI or not? Of course, but generally, okay, how I can utilize AI that with me in this task. So how we can get further there, and that's kind of a first box, first tips that you are doing. That's what you are going through in trainings, and we are teaching you, okay, how this is how you can utilize Copilot. This is how you can utilize co-work and get these things done. See some examples. And but when I talk about as an AI native organization, then you have to start thinking about these organizational processes. How does your recruiting work, or how does your billing or kind of customer experience works? Like, okay, we have an opportunity or lead an opportunity. How does that sales pipe work? How does the human resources part work? So where is the AI assisting employees all the time? So how you can reduce these waiting times that comes from humans. Okay, I need to ask some questions, but the simple way to help get there is that you have a smart agent that can help on the HR questions, but it should be doing even more. Okay, I need to be 2 days away. Okay, how do I get started with my leave and so on? So it can automate these things, or even to the level that if I mark to my calendar that I will be out of the office for 2 days, why shouldn't the agent be catching that up and start doing that for me? We don't have that, at least not yet. But kind of the idea. It things that should be driving the AI-driven processes that, okay, when we are doing something, we wouldn't even have to kind of explicitly tell the AI, okay, I need it to do something, but it can catch on things and then come to me and check, okay, looks like you are going to be away for 2 days. Is this correct? And take it to the process and just get things approved kind of automatically. And perhaps there's a human in the loop saying yes or no at some point. But that's kind of when you think about, okay, how is the organization running? It's not just on this how people are utilizing AI, but how the organization is utilizing AI to run through these processes and workflows they have.
Quite interesting fact. So, when in your personal observation, when do you see the Copilot rollouts generally stall for specific organizations, or what are the main pain points that you see? Like, okay, everybody goes in with the AI native approach, and then They think about implementing very basic features like HR, let's say timesheet approval, or chasing the manager for timesheet approval or leave cadence or whatever. But where does generally it stalls?
How this all starts? Well, just of course, for the organizations, they hopefully have done some Copilot readiness checks. So you have to think about the data part. You have to think about, okay, how we are protecting and securing our data. What kind of settings we can have on or off. For example, in Europe, they had to think about, okay, do we allow anthropic models or not? And that sort of things. There's different settings there. But that's a kind of a technical part, and some part of that technical enablement goes with IT first, and then some parts like data protection and stuff like that may follow up a bit later, but it will follow up. But when you start kind of taking Copilot into the organization, you have to, usually I would recommend start with the management, leadership, because they need to understand the benefits that this tool is going to bring to them. And once they know that, then it's going to be easier, because they need to have the wow effect. They need to kind of people who are first there to kind of understand the value for the organization, understand what it can do, why it's not going forward anymore. And I think it's one of the reasons is that it's not reinforced. I think it's kind of felt it's like a project. It's a one-time project, and then people are not being engaged anymore. But of course, there could be other reasons. And the most typical reason is that people are deprioritizing it. So it's not felt it's as important as it should be. So they are not giving it time. They are not going through that. They are not thinking about, okay, how I'm going to use it. And or perhaps you can't even organize those trainings anymore. So kind of it gets down prioritized, and that's because the management is not then understanding, okay, what it could be doing for the organization, and they are not kind of giving enough their sponsorship. So they are not sponsoring it enough to go forward. So basically you need to have a sponsor there. Interest is that, okay, this is going forward, or at least seeing, okay, how does it work for our organization. But generally, I think we are very past that phase already. So it could be more about how do we start to utilize this, how we are embedding it into our operations and processes where we are going to be utilizing it. Organizations need to start discovering those relevant use cases that are theirs, not generic ones. Generic ones are good for generic demos, but for organizations, they need to have those very specific use cases that are really their use cases. So you need to do the use case discovery or similar workshops. And if they feel that, okay, we have other work that's more important, then those workshops never happen, or they don't have all the stakeholders in those workshops. So they are not meeting all the kind of the whole organization needs. So you're getting only some pieces of information. So customer needs to have an active role here as well. And so that's why it's important the management and leadership understands the benefits, because they can then utilize the priority part. And so this is so the reason why it stalls it. Some of those parts is missing. And so people are not given time to learn it. They are not required to learn it. They are not required to kind of the use it. It's not being followed up. Is it being used? Who's using that? Who's not using that? And so that sort of things that are really things, okay, that can stall it. Of course, there can be technical issues as well. Like, okay, it's for some groups of people, it just cannot do that yet, or couldn't do that earlier. But and then they stop it and they don't come back to that, and even when it would have these capabilities. Right. Especially during those early years, that was something that was seen, okay, it's not working for us yet because it's not mature enough. But now it has matured again, so they would have to kind of try again there. So that's kind of out there. I don't think there's a single reason, but some of the reasons hopefully are clear.
No, absolutely. I think you're bang on. Reinforcement and then the use cases and adherence to it is really a very important thing. But I like to add a couple of stories that I personally have seen for a couple of projects where we implemented it. One was actually in-house. So we have this augmentation team, which basically does a lot of interviews. And then there is a requirement when it comes in with respect to a specific JD. They have a lot of bank that they have created in terms of resources, right? So they do it manually. So what they will do is that every time they will go back and look at those Excels and those resources resumes, and then they will figure out, okay, yeah, this is what we are talked about. He is the right or she is the right fit, right? So what we try to do is we try to solve this problem by implementing Copilot, right? So we gave some knowledge sources of those Excels, plus we integrated LinkedIn, etc. The problem statement that I saw there was primarily, of course, we were very excited because since we are primarily a Microsoft Stack company and Copilot comes at the very core of it. So we were very excited to get it implemented. So there was a lot of reinforcements. But the problem at the end was in the data points. So the data that they were collecting in Excel, they were missing certain crucial information. So when they were pinging that, okay, this is the J and this is the year of experience, and I need somebody who is matching this CTC or some financials, then retrieve the 5 best top clients or 5 consultants. Now, this is where their data was not very accurate. So that is the first challenge that we faced in this engagement. So we had to first clean up the entire data, and then they perfectly started using the Copilot. Now, the other use cases, and I'll come back to you on the thoughts of that, how do we streamline this? But the second use case where it was a very complex implementation in a contact center, where we had Power Virtual Agent and we have to migrate it to Copilot bots. What we faced is that at the end of the day, customers' requirement was fairly simple. But just because we had these features available in Copilot bots and Copilot Studio, the existing team did manage to make it quite complex. So the entire routing and entire selection of AI-based selection of the right routing team or skills was taking absurd amount of time because there was just so many crisscross rules that were written. So what are your thoughts around the data as well as simplifying the business requirement, of course, along with the reinforcement?
Okay, yeah, you had interesting use cases, of course, on those examples, and I can understand that. Yes, the data is really the key because AI runs on data. We know that. It's especially when you are bringing it to business processes, you have to clean up your data, and it may have been cluttered with lots of information, but the more you have kind of all the information that's not current anymore, it's there only to confuse the AI part. So that's part of the information. Like data protection is one, but of course data cleanup is something else that you should be doing. But of course those projects may take time. We know that it's not going to be easy, but of course you can then think about, okay, how I can do that with AI as well to help do some cleanup. But yes, but what also affects there is the model that you are using, the AI model. So for example, the Claude Opus 4.8, it's much smarter about going through amount of data and what kind of information that data includes. So that can also be the technical limitation on some of those things. Okay, it's not going to follow up that. But then you also have, when you are building something, you have to think about the instructions you are giving to the agent. Because if the instructions are not good enough, the agent can then do something else that's not wanted to do, for example, or it may not follow up, or it may be taking way too long to execute those things as well. Because they can be very complex and so you have to kind of rethink some of the stuff that's been done. And AI can take some time to come up with, for example, to create PowerPoints and create documents, because it's not that fast. They can't just create those. There's no computing power available at the moment that they would be doing those in a. When you think about those processes, you have to rethink, okay, can we do this with something else in mind? How we can rethink the whole process that we are doing? Or if you are not willing to rethink that, then perhaps you may not have the right time to kind of AI that part yet, but can you then utilize AI to some part of the process? And so on. So you can, it's a very rare organization that's going to go and put AI to everything at one go. But instead, usually it's kind of going, especially you have like huge processes, huge number of processes, you are taking it bit by bit. But that depends on the organization. I don't know if that was answering that or was I just going around the topic. But
no, I think it's never one thing, right? With respect to these, there are so many nuances in terms of. But thank you so much for sharing your opinion and around it, because I think, just to summarize this, right, what we understand is that if you want to go with a Copilot story or any agentic AI story for that matter, whether it is in Microsoft stack or outside, I think first thing is the use cases, as we discussed, has to be very clearly identified. Exactly what you need to get done. There has to be some iterations over it so that it comes out very clearly. Second thing is you have to have a ADKAR plan, which is basically you have to have the reinforcement that
you are following ADKAR model, then yeah, it will help. Yes,
it will help. And once the use case has been identified, we have to ensure that the supportive data, not only the cleaner portion, but also the fresh, as you mentioned very rightly, that the data infusion or the data becomes stale. So how do you ensure that the data remains compliant with the requirement of the model? So I think it is a combination of multiple factors, and this is very good. So which brings me to a slightly non-controversial, funnier portion of the podcast.
I would also say that ensure that people have good experience with AI. Let them have some fun, because it usually helps. It's the awareness and desire part, and because when people have fun, they learn better. They are willing to utilize it, try it, because it takes courage to try things, new things out, and so it make that also easier for people.
Absolutely agree. I think fun has to be at the center of all the activities that is being performed. So really love the point there. Which brings me to another fun portion, right? Which is basically, see, you are based out of Finland and you're helping customer out in Dubai, right? And there's a stark difference in terms of the climatic conditions. So I do understand that you're working remotely, but is there any specific pointers that you have while talking to somebody who is really in a hot and humid conditions like India or Dubai?
Well, I don't think it's yeah, it's just for fun, but yeah, sometimes it's nice to ask about the weather and then tell about, okay, what's the weather in Finland, especially when it was during the autumn when it was raining and cold, and during winter when it's snowing. So that's a very, very different climate when what people have. Now I was telling that, okay, now is a really hot day here in Finland, so it's 28 degrees. And we know that the Europe is going through the heat wave with about 40 degrees. And yeah, this is not as bad, but it's getting working from home office. Yeah, that it would be nice to have air conditioning during summer, of course. But that's we don't usually need that or that often.
How's the Finland as a market traditionally? Like, do people like to work from home, or they like to work from office or hybrid?
Well, it depends on and a lot of things, because there's a lot of kind of of course, you have traditional industries where the working from home isn't even an option for most of the people. Well, there's a lot of that people, but thinking about knowledge workers, so it depends on the company. There are like during the COVID time, it was a quick shift, and people were working from home and working remotely and from various places. And well, there's been a lot of talk about during the recent couple of years that some organizations want people to work from at the office more and kind of pulling it back there more than before. But then there are smarter organizations, in my opinion, that want to find out, okay, what's the good hybrid model? And then there's, let's say, AI native organizations or modern work organizations that really embrace, okay, you can work from anywhere at the work is not a location for knowledge workers. And of course, they may be thinking about, okay, let's try to meet at least once a month or something like that. So we know each other as a team members, as people, person to person as well. So, but I would say remotely as well. But because it's been, I don't know, I can't say it's been tradition, but usually the organizational culture is trusting the employees. And so that makes it more possible, but it really depends on the company and organization how they are doing that. So I don't have a very good answer. Haven't seen any statistics on that, but I would say it's been going backwards a bit, but overall, I'd say a lot of people still work remotely.
No, I think it's just what I was more inclining towards is like culturally, more than the requirements of a specific tradition of industry, or it's just like there is a sort of nature. Like, for example, I'll tell you in India, post COVID, there has been a steep remote working requirements that as tech professionals we are seeing. Plus, now with the advent of fast evolution of technology, we try to strive towards at least spend some time together in a week where we can actually, collocate and do some brainstorming and come up with some sort of interesting stuff, because world is moving very fast. That is what our take is here. And if you look at Dubai, my personal take has been always in the Gulf is that people are very specific in terms of going to office, being specific, following a specific time frame, and of course the decisions always comes at a specific time frame or stage of the project, which is generally slightly late. But that's how the industry is, and that how it has been through and throughout before COVID and pre-AI area. But I know, see, AI has really revolutionized the way every continent on the planet is, how they are adopting, right? But do you see a difference in terms of the AI adoption in MEA versus the AI adoption in Europe region or UK region for that matter?
Oh yes, there's like an MEA region. They are going for fast and further than the others. So that's the reason Sulava MEA exists, because the AI adoption is the willingness to kind of adopt AI into the work and culture and into work culture and organizations there. That's very, very high. They are doing that. They are kind of changing the way they are working and bringing the AI in and into their operations everywhere. And we've seen a lots of those news. They are investing to AI big time. And in Europe, I think that there's still kind of the things are moving a bit slower. It depends on the organization, of course, and people who are deciding there. There's been more like a perhaps more traditional use of AI had been strong in Europe, like you are utilizing machine learning and the other kind of more harder parts. But then with the natural language part, of course, it took a while because Europe has a lot of different languages as well. So it's been slightly different there. But then people have been started like with Copilot. Okay, is everybody now going to see what data we have? Do we have to do the data protection part first? And kind of those parts. And then there's this anthropic model part was also kind of one example that, okay, we have to think about the GDPR part and the European data protection, like where is the data residency, where it is being hand managed and handled. So that part is there. But that has been also in MEA region as well, but it hasn't stopped them from going forward either. So they are thinking about in which operations, for example, they can use that. And I think now something has changed because everything is going faster than before there as well with these models and like how they are utilizing it. So I would say that the MEA is now kind of a spearhead on that. Okay, how we are going to be pushing these, how we are changing that and adopting AI. So that's definitely ahead. But yeah, Europe is perhaps a bit now worried about, which models we'll be using. I don't know how is the thing in India. Are you thinking about, are we going to be using US-based models or are it China-based models? But yeah, that's which vendors do you trust? I think that's also the thing. And which are the sovereign regional ones? Do you have sovereign models or sovereign data centers? So there's a lot of questions there. But also Microsoft is building their new data center to Saudis at the moment, and it will be hopefully opening this year. And so that will also change a lot of things.
Interesting. Yeah.
But there's a lot of focus in MEA on AI at the moment.
A very interesting fact, Vesku, because of what, and this is a very recent news that I was reading with respect to Chinese models versus US models, specifically to India. I think with like for example, Fable 5 being paused or cancelled for the time being, and then Chat GPT rollouts are also like staggered now. I We are seeing a slight shift towards the Chinese models, but there is a natural tendency of not 100% trusting Chinese models, because that is what everybody has seen on a bigger front. But my question to you from a Mia perspective, because this is a very interesting point that you raised, that they are really moving very fast in terms of their adoption, and Europe definitely has their own checks and balances that they want to follow before they go deep dive and then other things. With respect to Mia, what we have been seeing is that since most of them are government owned subsidiaries or government owned organizations, they are not very comfortable, at least the ones that we have seen or we are talking to, they are not very comfortable in terms of having a closed model deployed in their premises, which can have access. Because see, most of these organizations are still working out of on-premise Dynamics CRM or on-premise Dynamics FNO implementations or whatnot, right? So they have restricted the access. And another interesting point that you said, that Microsoft is opening a lot more data centers, which is definitely going to help, because that has become a thorn in the entire implementation cycle, where they are dependent on having a data center in some other country, even though it's in
Yeah.
GCC, but they don't want to share the data. So how, when such a requirement, have you faced those requirements personally? And if yes, how are you trying to solve that problem statement where the government-owned subsidiaries want to at least implement some sort of AI edge case or AI search, for that matter, in terms of?
Yeah, yes, I have encountered those as well. But on the other hand, I have encountered so many other companies that are pushing forward without don't have those borders, or they don't kind of restrict the usage. But yes, and I've seen that then it's basically coming to that. Okay, what's available through those data centers that they have in the region, and then or which regions they want to kind of trust. Perhaps they want to try some of the organizations where, okay, it has to be within UAE. So that limits quite a lot. But then when you have a MEA region, data center kind of within the MEA region, you could be selecting something that's available there, or perhaps even European data centers are okay. So because they are protected by GDPR part and then the European part as well, so okay, they can be trusted. So it depends on the company. But the moment they are expanding now to the EMEA region, or let's say Europe part of that, that's when it comes a bit easier, because hey, we can deploy these models to the foundry, for example, and utilize them from there, and you can utilize these services that are running within that certain region. So that's kind of what was there in the talks. But of course, if you have a kind of a very strict requirement, it needs to be within UAE borders, then you have a lot of limits, and then you have to play around, okay, what's available. And because it's not our job to kind of tell the companies, okay, change your requirements. We can tell them what's available, but they have done the decision by themselves. We can provide information. We can kind of collaborate with Microsoft and bring in information, okay, regarding Microsoft data centers, that, okay, what's in there. But of course, it's ultimately up to the company, then they are making that decision what they are enabling or not, and what goes on with their policies and requirements.
So there is no magical gateway to get it implemented if they don't want it to get implemented, right?
No, unfortunately no. Then, but things are going, like technical side, things are going that way. Like, okay, more models are going to be available. Then you will have Foundry local version as well. So perhaps it will help things in a near future or future as well. So you can bring in those models running there. But the more complex the models are, then of course it's more harder in there to kind of make it run through the Azure local or something like that. But it's still about at least thinking about the Foundry part. So that's okay. What kind of capabilities are available in those? But yeah, there's no magic word or anything like that will change that way. But it's just it's knowledge, basically, if you want to say knowledge about how things are processed, how they are managed, how the data is managed, how it's protected, and so on. So it's usually Microsoft and these organizations have a lot of talks together. Okay, what's in there, and it's probably one reason why Saudis are getting a very huge data center, because it will enable them to run a lot of these things. And the same thing for UAE. There's going to be new capability. There is already new capabilities in those data centers within UAE. So some of those requirements are coming from customers, and they are talking with Microsoft, and then Microsoft decided, okay, is this worth the trouble or not?
A pretty interesting fact. I think I was fairly expecting the answer. There is no magic wand, but good to know the feedbacks in terms of that like for example data center was something that is news to me, and this is definitely delayed. But if it is coming this year, I think there's nothing like it. It's definitely going to open a lot of avenues for implementers like all of us to go in and then start actually working on the things that matter. Your AI Native Workplace Summit. Tell me, why was it born? What exactly you had in mind when you planned that? And tell us more.
Yes. Yeah, and the AI Native Workplace Summit is a community conference that I'm organizing along with some of my friends. It's online. It's going to happen on September 16th, just to kind of keep a heads up for people. And it's filled with the community and Microsoft speakers who are going to talk about this technology and best practices and their experiences and customer use cases, and sharing the knowledge with the attendees. So that's a pure community conference in all community sense. It's free for people to join, and of course the speakers are joining free and sharing their knowledge. So the idea is that in Microsoft community there has been a lot of these conferences in the past. Before COVID, most of them were on site, like in person. They were served on Saturdays. There were different events, collab days, and well, not collab days at that point, but there were, I think I have forgotten those names because they have changed, but now you have like a European Community SharePoint Conference and European SharePoint Conference, and now the European Collaboration Conference and that sort of stuff. There's been a lot of conference. And then I was originally, there was this Microsoft Teams focused online conference that became Teams Nation. I was part of that crew back then, and then we had the Metaverse One for a couple of years, and then I've kind of reinvented to the age of AI. So it's coming from modern work or our Teams side of work to the Metaverse, basically future work, and now continue with future work with the AI, very, very heavy AI focus. So that's the idea, bringing these people who are sharing the knowledge and let everybody who's willing to join to kind of learn from them. Because there's so much information. We have 76 speakers there. So that's a kind of a big number of people who are sharing the information, and over those 62 sessions. So we will have 6 rooms this year. I don't know if you attended a Native Workplace Summit last year, but we had 4 rooms. So we had 42 sessions back then. Now we have 20 more.
Amazing.
It's going to run 12 hours. So that's the thing with online conferences. Yes, we can kind of expand. Of course, we could expand the number of rooms, and we Teams Nation, I think we had some on the peak. We had 13 rooms or something like that, but it was getting quite huge. Let's say that. And now this is a bit more compact, but still 6 rooms and 12 hours. So we are running starting at the European morning, and so people in India can very well join, and they can watch it over the evening. Of course, everybody in the Asia as well, so they can kind of go through the first part. And when it's European evening, when we stopped, then the people audience in the US can of course join in, and first East Coast, and then later on for the last 6 hours, let's say 4 to 5 hours, depending on people, the West Coast as well. So there's basically, we are spanning quite many time zones with that. So people can join and check those sessions that they are feeling, okay, these are the ones that I want to see. And most of those will be recorded and shared later on as well, but we encourage people to join live, just to show the support, but also to kind of engage with the speakers, ask questions, because that's the unique chance they have. And we have a very great lineup. We just released the schedule last week. I think, last Friday. So it's been quite a ride, and being able to select the speakers from a very, very long list. That's a task. And yes, AI was there helping with me. It wouldn't be an AI native conference if I wouldn't be utilizing AI in every possible step as well. And so we have to use our own dog food as well, but also remember the human aspect there as well. So AI is not making the final decisions, it's just giving the suggestions, and final decisions are always human made. So, but I would say everybody definitely join in, register in. It's free. Get the blocker to your calendar and join on that day, because there we have basically 6 teams there. We are talking about, of course, we have the future work, where is sessions from different topics, but we of course have adoption and change management as one of those rooms. We have agentic AI. So, of course, how you are building those agents and then utilizing the AI is there, how you are growing your adoption path there, and then with the AI teammates and extending and so on. So we have basically 6 good themes there.
Awesome.
Right.
I think I am personally really angst up. I would love to join and block my calendar as soon as I get off the podcast. One thing that I would like to understand, of course, and we are reaching to the end segment of the podcast rescue. So your MVP journey, how was it? Like, when did you start, and what would you like to tell the prospective MVPs in the upcoming future?
Okay. Well, I kind of I got my MVP on January 2019. So during 2018, it was basically the whole year when I was sharing the knowledge. When Microsoft Teams came out, I was, of course, very interested about the way the Teams was changing, how we are working. And that kind of sparked my passion in there. And 2017, end of 2017, 2018, I started to share a lot of information, writing my blog and so on about Microsoft Teams and providing helpful information. And I was taking part in the tech community very heavily as well. So I got involved with the community. And from that, I got awarded with MVP for Microsoft Teams. And so now you understand the Teams Nation part there. But that's the thing. You need to have passion for technology. You need to have passion for that. It might not even be to technology. It might be adoption and change management, because there's MVPs on that categories. But you become a deep expert on those, on that selected, what you are doing. And you are sharing your knowledge. So you are writing a blog, you are doing YouTubes, you are doing podcasts, you are doing something. That's how you are sharing it. You are speaking at the events. It doesn't matter. There's multiple ways how you can kind of work with in this. But that's that's the thing. If you want to become an MVP, you have to pick up, okay, what's your thing? What are you passionate about? Because if you just do it, feel like, okay, this is just on top of my work, and you do it like that, it's not going to go forward. Then you do a couple of engagements, something, but you have to be sustainable. You have to be doing something that's really, you are doing that, and you are getting in touch with the community and kind of linking with people, so people get to start to know you as well. So I'd say that's the passion is the key thing, because otherwise you don't want to go through that.
Absolutely. There are no shortcuts. I think this is the same answer that we have been hearing across in all our conversations with different MVPs. But still, since it's a part or a section of the podcast, I have to ask. And one more thing that I want to check with you is for the new techies who are planning to enter the industry at this point in time, what are your recommendations to those guys?
My recommendation, if it hasn't been very clear on this podcast already, is utilize AI. Learn how you can use it, what you can do with that, because I've seen so many great examples on that. People are creating pro code agents without basically any knowledge of coding. Okay, is that good or bad that you don't know it? But the thing is that you can create those proof of concepts or demos or something like that very, very easily. But the key thing is that you know the capabilities, how AI can help you, what it can do, where it's good to use it, and where it is not, of course, good to use it as well. So there can be a lot of things that you should be interested. Stay in the news, follow the news, follow what's coming up, what's next, what's happening in this trade. Learn and have that courage and curiosity to start trying things out. I think that's about the AI, but that's also about other things. If you are interested about the security part, try to get and learn about those things. Microsoft Learn is a fantastic resource, and you can take those mini tests there as well. You can do some badges for yourself without having to. Eventually, of course, you may want to do the certifications there, as well. But certifications cost, but those mini badges don't. So it's very great place to start learning on Microsoft Tech. And every other vendor, like larger ones, they have their own Learn and compatible things. And so you should be curious, try out things, because if you just check out and see what others teach, and you never try it on your own, or you don't teach it on your own, then you never become an expert. You can't learn by watching. You have to learn by doing.
Right.
You watch for ideas, you get started there, but in order to really do it, you have to do it yourself. So that's courage and curiosity. You need those. And of course, collaboration helps. Collaborate with the community.
I think that's a very sane piece of advice. Thanks, Vesku. Let me just close the podcast with what I have gathered, I have learned as part of the discussions that we had. For an industry to, start with the adoption, what they have to do this week is to identify the use cases, understand the ADKAR change management process, or maybe any process change management that works for them. But the reinforcement is going to be a key. The data has to be, the data strategy has to be thought before the AI strategy. You have to ensure the data is clean, the reinforcement of the data or replenishment of the data is always current. And most of all, humans are at the center of taking the final decision. So the AI is supposed to augment the skills on the human, not the other way around. And of course, everybody please go and participate in AI Native Workplace Summit, where Vesku has a lot of interesting speaker lined up. Please go there and understand what exactly is needed as part of building AI Native Workplace. On that note, Vesku, thank you so much. You have been a wonderful guest on the show, and we have learned a lot of things. I think audience will be really interested to go through, dissect, and come back with a lot of questions. And if they come, I will be happy to pass that on. Thank you so much for your time and effort here, Vesku.
Thank you, Himanshu. It was great to be your guest here. Thank you.